This is Gail DePriest with Clemson MBA, and it is my pleasure today to be interviewing Kodwo Ghartey-Tagoe, who is the president of Duke Energy for South Carolina. And Kodwo, we're delighted that you're here. We know some things about your background and what you're currently doing, but this is a wonderful opportunity for us just to learn more about you and what inspires you and what drives you and how you've made this journey to where you are. So I just wanted to start with hello.
Hello. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So I know that you're at Duke Energy as president right now. Tell me a little bit about how you came to be there.
So it's a long journey. It's been a long journey. I don't know if you know this, but I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. Grew up in Ghana, left when I was 19 to go to university in Canada. Attended McGill University there, and then came south to Duke University Law School. Attended law school at Duke University. Got my first job in Washington, D.C. with a law firm that specialized in energy regulation. And had the opportunity to go work with them, and I took it. I was a foreign student, and so was a temporary worker under one of those visas that are being debated in Congress today, and had the opportunity to work with them for 6 years, and then moved to another law firm in Richmond, Virginia. Worked there about 6 years, and then moved to another law firm across the street in Richmond for about 3 years. And then one day got a call from a lawyer at Duke Energy inviting me to come work with Duke Energy. And I took that opportunity, came down, spent about, I'd say from 2002 until 2016, so about 13 and a half years in the legal department. And doing all kinds of things, got opportunity to do different things in the legal department. Was hired as chief regulatory counsel, so continued the regulatory work I had done in the law firms. But every few years I'd have a different assignment and move around until late 2016. I was given the opportunity to come down to South Carolina and lead our team here. And what an honor it's been for me these last 2.5 years leading Duke Energy's operations here and our business here in South Carolina.
I saw where that promotion came through in 2016. You'd been working in the legal aspect of the business. Why do you think that happened? Why do you think you were chosen to lead this team in South Carolina at this time?
So my background, as I previously said, is largely in the regulation of public utilities. But I have the opportunity I had in the legal department to rotate on different assignments, I believe made me very well-rounded. That's one of the things I'm most proud about my background. I spent time in litigation for a period. I was general counsel for Duke Energy's litigation matters. I spent time in our commercial businesses as general counsel for our commercial businesses, which included our unregulated solar, wind farms, and then international business, basically on our unregulated businesses. So a very commercial environment there, working with very commercially minded people. And then I come to South Carolina, and we did not know this at the time. I don't think management knew what was going to happen in South Carolina when I took the role. But looking back now, I think everything I did until I got this role prepared me for the challenges that we've had in South Carolina since early 2017. So I think management was looking for somebody who was well-rounded, somebody who understood regulatory matters, and somebody who understood business, and somebody who could actually represent the company in South Carolina. I've had the honor and privilege to follow some other distinguished leaders who had been here before me. So
I want to talk more about that, some of the challenges and some of the aspects of your role in just a moment. But I do want to be sure to ask you, what is your most proud moment professionally, and also what is your most proud moment personally?
Most proud moment for me would be in 2013 when the Thurgood Marshall College Fund gave me an award for my outstanding service to the profession and support for diversity and inclusion. It was Thurgood Marshall, was on the U.S. Supreme Court, a fighter for justice and racial equality, somebody had looked up to as a law student and as a practicing attorney. So to receive an award named for him was quite an honor for me.
Absolutely.
So I would say that was the most proud moment for me professionally. Certainly there have been others, but that's the one that stands out to me. Personally, I take great pride in the achievements of my three girls. I have three daughters, aged 27, 25, and 23 now. And with every achievement of theirs, I try to celebrate it like it was my own. I see how hard they work, and I'm really proud of everything each one of them has accomplished. And so it's not just one moment. It's a series of moments. I remember distinctly my oldest daughter, who was on the varsity basketball team at Charlotte Latin School. She was on the team, I think, about 2 years. Total career points, 2 points.
Oh.
And I remember the moment she scored those 2 points. And I am so proud I kept the program from that game.
Sure.
So things like that just delight me, and I'm just very proud of those moments, too.
Excellent. Thank you. So I wanted to ask you some of the challenges, the hurdles that you faced and how you've overcome them. What might come to mind when you think about challenges throughout your career, hurdles?
I think about challenges and adversity throughout my life. I believe we all go through adversity, right? The difference is how you deal with it. I remember way back in second grade, I had to repeat second grade. I don't know anybody else who's repeated second grade, but I repeated second grade. That was adversity for me. And this was in Ghana, of course. Otherwise, had an excellent academic record. Went into university in Canada, did well. Thought I would just glide into Duke University, and I was put on the wait list. I counted that as adversity too, because it sort of made me feel like I wasn't good enough. I now know more about the admissions processes in colleges and universities, so I know that's not what that meant. But at that time, that's the way I felt.
Sure.
So I view that as adversity. But when I did get into law school too, my first year was very challenging. I think you talk to any law student, they'll tell you the most challenging year is the first year. And I did not do very well my first year. That was adversity for me. Very challenging. And then I get a job in Washington, D.C., think I'm doing wonders and doing great there. And then one day I get a call during my performance review. Somebody said, I don't think you're good enough for this place. And I was encouraged to move on. That was adversity, and then you move to the next firm and you do well. And even at Duke Energy, there was a time when I was effectively demoted. That was adversity, but I tend to dwell more on overcoming those and the lessons I learned and how that equips me to be a better person today, a better professional today, a better dad or a better friend. Those are the things I tend to focus on. And I say this to folks all the time. I have friends, young folk that I mentor and others who seek advice, or even in speeches that I make sure I emphasize that, the challenges you face should not define who you are. There are things that happen in a moment in time. Sometimes that moment is long. Might be a year, might be a year and a half, but your attitude towards that determines how long it lasts most of the time.
So true.
Your attitude towards that determines how well you come out, of those dark periods. And I tend to focus on that, and I don't regret anything I've gone through. I'm just pleased that I overcame all those incidents of adversity, and I'm just honored to be where I am today.
You mentioned mentors. Talk a little bit about maybe mentors that you had that might have helped you along your path.
Absolutely. I've had many, many mentors. I think it is absolutely critical that everyone has a mentor, whether in the professional space or even the personal space. Somebody you can talk to, somebody who can provide guidance, somebody who can help you find the way. And at every stage of my career in particular, I can identify multiple mentors who made a difference. I'm thinking, for example, about a senior partner I had once who, I was being courted by a different law firm to come work with them. And he asked me, how much money, typically they'll ask you, how much money do you expect to make in this role? And he asked me, and I gave him a number, and he said, what? You're worth way more than that. They should pay you that times 2.5 and shouldn't blink because of the value you bring. Well, what that taught me was I had been undervaluing myself. Here's somebody I worked with on a regular basis who saw my flaws and what I could do and thought that I was worth way more than I personally thought I was worth, at least financially. That was an eye-opener for me. And so sure enough, I go into this job interview and they ask me that question and I gave them the higher number my mentor gave me. And sure enough, they did not blink, and so you look back and I ended up not taking that job, but I think about that experience and I say, gee, if I'd gone in and undervalued myself, the prospective employer would have valued me accordingly.
Yes.
And I would have missed an opportunity there. It also speaks to them about the value, my confidence level, and what I thought I was bringing to the table, something that I also would have missed. The Duke executive who brought me in to work for Duke Energy has also been a very influential mentor of mine. And I remember, my first year, I went through a 360 review where my peers and my teammates got to evaluate me. And one of my evaluators questioned my sincerity when I gave compliments. And that shocked me because I'm a fairly serious guy, and I tend to say what I mean and not say things I don't mean. So other than the fact that it hurt me, I wanted to fix it. So I talked to my mentor about it, and he pointed out a statement I had made multiple times in jest. Right. I unfortunately had the tendency, people would ask me, so how's the job going? And I'd say, it is great, except for the people. Because I was managing people.
Sure.
And most of my challenges or issues were HR or people related. And I thought, gee, if I didn't have to deal with these issues, I could be so much more productive. But that was part of the job.
Sure.
That's part of being a leader. And I had to fully appreciate and embrace that as part of the role. And I was failing in that. And of course that, even though I may not have told this particular employee those words, it was coming through in my interactions with them. And that's why they rated me the way they rated me. And so my mentor said, I never want to hear you say that again. That was an eye-opener for me. Somebody who could speak so frankly to me.
Yes.
And I respected him enough. I knew he'd been down that road before me, that I believed what he was saying, and I implemented that. And so that was very impactful and beneficial, in terms of having a mentor who could speak that directly into my life. And there have been many, many others.
And it says a lot about you that you were able to hear it and you were able to use the information to, you said, implement. What did you do? What did you do differently? How did you make sure that you weren't coming across that way in the future?
In this case, he specifically asked me, don't say those words again.
Those particular words.
So I made sure I didn't say that again. But certainly it was always top of mind when I gave compliments from then on, and then also to be sure that I'm not just criticizing, right? That, when something needs improvement, the way you say it too is impactful to the employee, and keeping that in mind, as well as being as generous with my compliments as I am with the coaching and feedback or criticism that I might have for an employee.
Sure.
So that experience taught me about that as well.
One thing I've read about you is that you have tried to create a culture of continuous improvement. How do you do that? How do you get your people to feel safe to, make the changes, innovate, create the change that needs to occur, and continue to improve? How do you do that?
I think on something like that, the first thing you do, or the first thing I do, is to make sure everybody on the team appreciates that their voice is important, that their voice will be heard, and that I welcome their voice, regardless of what the subject matter is. So in our company, for example, we're a heavily matrixed organization. So many people don't believe it when I tell them, as far as the HR organization is concerned, the South Carolina team is a team of about 15. That's 15 people in my personal organization. But on the other hand, we have 30,000 Duke Energy employees all over the country. And we all are driving towards the same goal, delighting our customers. So I don't think of it as a team of 15. I think of it as a much larger team. And I want to make sure everybody understands what their role is in achieving our goals. So first thing I do, I invite people to speak up. And I also, and this is not contrived or anything, I think I show vulnerability when I let people know I don't know everything. I believe in the wisdom of crowds. I absolutely believe in that. I believe in the power of diversity. And so everybody brings their authentic self to work. Their input could impact us in ways that we may not have anticipated because we're not seeing things from their viewpoint. So I make sure my teammates know that regardless of where you sit in the organization, your voice is valuable and you need to speak up. And we get ideas from everywhere and we implement them. And if it doesn't work, we move on and we change. So being open to change is also a critical factor in this. And letting my team know that I am open to change if something doesn't work.
You mentioned pleasing your customers, and I'm just curious to know what would the perfect testimonial from one of your customers look like, because you have so many and they're across the broad spectrum of different kinds of people, and then you have business issues that you have to deal with and keep balanced budgets and so forth. What is it that you want to hear a customer say?
So, we have many customers. We have many types of customers. We have customers who demand different things of us. So we have large business customers. We have small commercial customers. We have large commercial customers. And then we have individual homeowners. One thing they all want from us is reliable electric service at affordable prices. And recently, power that is increasingly clean. I'll tell you, very recently, there was a letter to the editor in the Greenville News that exemplifies exactly what I'm talking about. A customer, and mind you, it was published March 30th, so fairly recently, at a time when we had proposed to raise rates in the upstate as well as in the PD. We have 2 pending rate cases right now. And so there'd been a lot of negativity in the press about our company and about our proposal to raise rates. And a customer writes saying, one thing I know is when I flip the switch, the lights do come on. My heater comes on. My refrigerator works. My air conditioning works. And for that, I'm thankful to Duke Energy. This was a customer who obviously was saying, only one side of the story is coming out. Only the folks who are complaining about prices are getting a voice here. Let me let them know I appreciate what they do. That is the perfect testimonial for me.
Sure.
Because that's my goal, to make electricity so reliable to you that when you flip the switch, it always comes on. And here, let me point out one more thing. So I come from Ghana, as I said, a country where electric service is not as reliable as here. I'll tell you this, a few years ago, I was flying back from Ghana after visiting family, happened to sit next to a gentleman who owned a business in Ghana, a manufacturing business. And he told me he was contemplating moving his business to the next country over, where there was a civil war going on, because their power was more reliable than the power he was getting in Ghana. The power we provide drives economic development. It drives jobs. It drives safety for people. It drives comfort. It impacts every area of everybody's life. And I will concede, it is a necessity. So my job is to make sure people are getting what they expect, when they sign up for our electric service. And expectations are changing, and I've got to keep up with that too. And part of that is what results in higher prices, because we make investments to meet these expectations, and those investments certainly cost money, and so prices have to change to accommodate that. But bottom line is, we are trying to provide reliable electric service at affordable prices and increasingly clean as people demand more clean energy on the grid.
I'm curious to know if all the weather elements that have occurred in the last couple of years have played a part of your consternation and some of the changes in your organization, because it seems like that's a huge burden, cutting trees and trying to restore power because of the different weather elements that are occurring. Could you comment on that?
Absolutely. And weather is becoming more and more of a factor. We used to talk about 100-year floods. Well, the 100-year flood seems to be occurring every 5 years now. In the last year, we had Hurricane Florence, we had Hurricane Michael, and Duke Energy as an enterprise, and I emphasize that because we're in multiple states besides the Carolinas. Last year, we spent over $1 billion restoring power after storms. We think there are things we can do to minimize the impact of these storms by building a more resilient grid and a smarter thinking grid. And by that I mean a grid that has some electrical components to it that enables it to react to impacts from storms better than we have today. A resilient grid that is able to withstand the forces of nature better than what we have today. A grid that is able to protect our infrastructure from intruders through cyber threats. That is important to us. That is important to the businesses who count on us. That is important to the families who rely on us. And so we've got a grid improvement plan that we're contemplating. We've had some workshops to discuss it with stakeholders about where we intend to invest money to improve the grid. But a big chunk of it is to address this issue you raise. The challenges that Mother Nature seems to be throwing at us more frequently these days. One of the things we're actually rolling out now, and it was actually a factor in the last storm, is something called a self-healing network, which essentially means, when you have an outage on some part of the grid, you're able to redirect the flow of power so that you can isolate where the problem is, and fewer people are out than otherwise would be the case, and they're out for a shorter period than otherwise would be the case because I've isolated the problem, and others are restored more quickly. So outages don't last as long, and outages are not as impactful. All that requires additional investment, which we are making today. We're also doing targeted undergrounding, so there are some neighborhoods that were built around our system. And so today they happen to be on the back lot where we can't get a bucket truck to when there's an outage to fix it. And may make more sense to put that line underground so that they're not as impacted when storms come.
Sure.
So we're doing things like that. There are also some parts of the city, not necessarily Greenville, but other cities, where the power lines are now so close to the roads. Every time it rains, somebody drives into a pole, and the lights go out for thousands of people. Those may be ideal candidates for undergrounding. But we're doing it in a very systematic way, a very analytical way to make sure the places where we do underground, because undergrounding is expensive, the places where we do underground provide a good cost benefit. In other words, there are more benefits from undergrounding it than the cost of doing so. And that's how we're doing, making that effort and those investments.
Kodwo, as you're talking through that, and I'm hearing the different ways that you're approaching things, and then Mother Nature's involved, and there's a lot of uncertainties, but I do come back to innovation, and I'm just curious to know, how would you define innovation? What does it mean to you?
Innovation means new. It means change. It means improvement. All those things to me. And one of the ways it's manifesting in our industry in particular, I'm thinking about the use of drones. Recently you may have heard we had the opportunity to go help out in Puerto Rico when they had the hurricane there and outages. We were able to use drones to identify trouble areas and to quickly assess challenges or what is broken so we can go fix it. Even right here in the United States, we use drones now, particularly in our solar farms. You can use drones now to determine panels or solar panels that may be defective. You can use drones to inspect power lines. So drones is sort of a new thing, right? But it's changed the way we do business. It means we're able to work safer than we could otherwise because the drones are able to go places where it would have been unsafe for humans to go to. It would have taken great effort to maintain the safety. So they're enabling us. Innovation is enabling us to work more safely and to be able to do things more efficiently. We've got a whole team now. In fact, we've got a team at a offsite location in Charlotte called Optimist Hall, and their job is trying to come up with new innovative ways for us to do what we do, delighting customers.
Talk about that more. Optimist Hall, is that what you
Yes,
said?
that's the name of the
How
building.
did that come about as the name, and what happens there exactly?
Well, I'm not sure how that name came about, but it's only been open for the last couple of years or so, and the employees who are looking for digital transformation in the way we do our business. So they're developing new applications that we could roll out in the future to benefit customers, new applications as in apps that will make our work more efficient, even on the operational side. In fact, I just got an email today inviting me to go visit, a day in the life of an employee at Optimist Hall. So I'm looking forward to learning more. But I do know that those folks and other folks all throughout our company are always looking for new ways, better ways, more efficient ways to deliver our product. Our industry is going through tremendous change. Technology is changing, and we must change with it. Our customers are expecting more reliability. They're expecting more affordability. They're expecting cleaner ways to do things. And so we've got to look at all of that. We've got to come up with creative ways to be responsive to our customers. We've got to come up with creative ways to keep our costs down, because that's where affordability comes in. We're not, frankly, in a competitive market, that's true. And so our prices are set with government approval, right? And you don't always get what you think you need. And so you've got to work hard to keep your prices down so that you can continue to provide better, doing more with less, essentially. You can continue to provide better service, more reliability in service at affordable prices.
And I would say most all employers, too, have that same challenge with regard
That is
to
true.
being creative with meeting customer needs and keeping costs down. So at Clemson MBA, we're always challenging our students to be innovative at work, to try to reduce costs, to try to increase revenue, to try to add value where they are. I'm curious, as I was listening to you, about your job is challenging, but I have a sense that you really enjoy it. And I want to know, what are the times that your job that you feel inspired and you feel especially grateful to be in this role?
And I totally underestimated this part of the job before I took it. The opportunity to sit in the front row and interact and see what the customer sees. Experience what the customer experiences. And to hear directly from customers. The things that I thought they would value, some of them don't value as much. And that front row seat has really opened my eyes in terms of how I delight these customers. Being responsive to their needs. Sometimes the customer just wants to be heard. And having the opportunity to meet one-on-one with them, and I do a lot of that. I really believe in a collaborative approach to problem solving, and collaboration is just not with your friends. Sometimes it's with people who don't see things the way you do. And so I've spent a lot of time traveling the state. If someone says, I want to meet with you, invariably my answer is yes. And sometimes my team gets on me about that. You've got to learn to say no because I'm on the road all the time, or it feels that way anyway. But I do think I've got to be responsive to our customers. I don't have a business without the customer. And I've also got to know what the customer needs if I'm going to delight the customer, right?
Sure.
I've got to see things from their perspective. There's some things I can't do anything about. Then there's some things I can't immediately do anything about. But there's a whole lot I can do something about, or our team can start to do something about. And I want to be able to bring that back to the team to try to find solutions. For example, something I just heard yesterday, I met with a stakeholder, who said, look, this was a community leader who said, my constituents, many of them have no more than a 7th grade education. So your communications that use these highfalutin words don't really make an impact on them. Mm-hmm. You've got to find a way to simplify your message, to communicate effectively with them. And I thought about it, and I say, I prefer simplicity. I prefer simplicity in my life. I prefer simplicity in my communications. And particularly when I was in the legal department, I tell my colleagues will tell you, many times when I marked up a document, it was to simplify it. Mm-hmm. And I do that today too. So it really resonated with me. What's my point in communicating if the person I'm communicating with does not hear me? Mm-hmm. So I've got to go back and think with my team about how do we simplify our messages so that our messages can resonate, because some of it is a very important messaging. Mm-hmm. For example, we're rolling out new, what we call smart meters or advanced metering infrastructure. The point is not just to get a new gadget on your home. The point is to provide a tool by which we can provide you new products and services that you want. So these smart meters, for example, allow us to gather enough information that when we give it back to you, you can better understand how you're using energy, mm-hmm. when you're using energy, mm-hmm. and be able to make informed decisions about those issues, right? But I've got to be able to explain to the customer why I'm changing their meter mm-hmm. when they think the old one they have works just fine, mm-hmm. right? And I've got to be able to explain to them the value that meter is going to bring to them to justify the expense of making that investment.
Sure.
And then, unfortunately, there are some out there also providing a whole lot of misinformation about these meters. Mm-hmm. So I've got to be able to communicate to them the truth about these meters, right? That you actually can get more electromagnetic pulses from your cell phone that you carry on your body 24/7 than you do from these meters.
Oh, sure.
People don't know that. And yet they complain about the meters because of mm-hmm. the electrical waves that come out of these meters. And oh, by the way, the meters we had before these also put out a radio signal. Mm-hmm. So I've got to find a way to communicate these messages in an understandable way so that my customers can better appreciate that.
I heard you speak recently, and you talked about some of the programs you have that help individuals in the community who are struggling to pay their bills.
Yes.
Get a better handle on their bill, their usage, and even repairs into their home. Can you talk briefly about that? And how does your background play into that? You must have compassion in that you're obviously growing these programs so that individuals are really getting help and being heard when they're struggling.
Absolutely, and that's very important, right? Because as I said, we're making investments which, all things being equal, will result in higher prices. The way the utility business works is you make your investment, and then you go to the government or the Public Service Commission and ask for permission to change your prices to recover those costs, right? So every time I make an investment, I'm thinking, other things being equal, prices are going to go up. Mm-hmm. I can't forever raise prices. So how do I keep prices under control? How do I give customers the opportunity to reduce their prices if they can? And so some of these programs, as I mentioned, give them more information that they can use. Some of them are also about quality of life issues. So, for example, with these smart meters and the new apps that we're developing, you can subscribe to something called Outage Alert. Mm-hmm. And on your phone, wherever you are, you can get an alert when the lights go out in your home. As a power company employee, I just found it astounding that it was my alarm company which first told me that my lights were out. Mm-hmm. I get an email or text every time the lights go out from my alarm company, but I wasn't hearing from my utility. But these are all recent capabilities that we're developing, and it's important for mm-hmm. folks as well. We also have energy savings or energy efficiency programs, and that enable customers take proactive steps to reduce their usage. We have programs like neighborhood energy savings programs, mm-hmm. where we actually come into the neighborhood and do an audit of your home typically low-income neighborhoods, and do an audit and make recommendations about how you can insulate, how you can change your light bulbs to lower wattage bulbs, but same, brightness and so forth, how very energy efficient LED type lighting. All of these save customers money. And those are all programs we offer. We go into the neighborhoods and we do these things and offer that to them. The other program we call Prepaid Advantage. It's available in the upstate. We're working on making it available in the PD. But this is a program that is also enabled by the smart meter, right? So you can tell me in advance, I only want to spend $35 a month on my electricity bill. So we set it up that way for you. And as you get close to $35, we give you an alert. And you can choose to add more money or not.
Sure.
That gives you flexibility, gives you choice. That's enabled by the smart meter. Pick your own due date. Isn't it amazing that it wasn't until recently that Duke Energy could allow you to call in and pick your own date when you wanted to pay your bill? I mean, virtually every credit card company has made that available for decades.
Sure.
But it's relatively new to us. Why? Because the old meters, you had to actually send somebody out there to read the meter. So if everybody on my street picked a different date, then I'd be sending somebody out on each one of those dates or corresponding with those dates to read the meter. Very expensive. Very. But with a smart meter, I can actually remotely access the meter from somewhere else and be able to read the meter that way. So if you pick your due date, it just takes computer programming to be able to read the meter on the date you prefer. Again, something enabled by these smart meters.
So all the new technology really is making other new possibilities and so forth, and you're certainly wanting to put those in as advantages for your customers.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
As we think about you as a leader, as you think about you as a leader, I'm curious to know, and a lot of our students will be listening to this podcast, what do you like about yourself as a leader, and what do you perhaps struggle with yourself about as a leader?
I like the fact that I'm well-rounded. At least I believe I am, professionally speaking, given all the multiple roles I've had. I started to tell you how I started in the utility regulation business. When I started, I was representing municipalities and cooperatives. And then I moved to a law firm where I was representing industrial customers, large industrial heavy power users and independent power producers. And then I moved on to representing utilities. So I have seen virtually every side of the issue, right? And I think that also adds to my approach to dealing with customers, because I have represented those customers. My approach to dealing with independent producers, like the new solar developers we have in our state, because I have represented clients like that. I think that's a distinct advantage for me, and so I'm very pleased with that kind of a background. My undergraduate, I did economics and finance, so I have some understanding of some numbers, and that also helps in the role I have. I look back today and I say virtually every step I took until now prepared me for a role like I'm sitting in.
Fascinating when you can look back and connect all the dots that come right into what you're doing and how everything, you couldn't have planned it any better than that.
Exactly, and most of it I did not plan.
Tell me more about that.
Most of it I did not plan. Again, back to where I started, I went to Duke Law School. Energy law was not taught there. The closest thing was an oil and gas class, which I did not take. I took that first job because it was the first job I got.
Sure.
And at the time, my plan was I was going to work a couple of years, and then go back to Ghana.
Were you planning to?
In fact, I did fill out an application form to join the Ghana Foreign Service.
Oh, my goodness. You were planning to.
I was planning to.
Yeah.
And then the firm, made the work so interesting. I enjoyed it so much, I decided to stay. And then came someone else who decided, gee, this guy's not good enough to be here. I advise you to go find a job somewhere else.
Interesting.
And I will tell you, after that advice, I spent 2.5 years looking for a job anywhere else but in the energy field.
Anywhere else but in the energy, because you
field.
didn't think you wanted to be in energy and you'd had that experience.
Exactly. And ironically, most of the employers, prospective law firms I talked to, they just saw my background and said, not many people have this background. We want you to come do that. Even though I had applied and was interviewing for a different kind of job.
Exactly.
And then I moved to Richmond, Virginia and got a job like this. doing a different aspect of it. In Washington, mostly focused on federal, some state, and litigation. And in Richmond, Virginia, focused on state regulation and some litigation. And then come to Duke, and even within Duke, the opportunity to rotate from regulatory to litigation to commercial back to regulatory all seemed like it was preparing me for a job like this. But of course, while I was going through it, I didn't see that. When I was being advised to leave my first law firm, I didn't see that. That was no fun time, for somebody who thought, gee, he was a high achiever.
Humbles you, doesn't it?
It does humble you, absolutely. Even at Duke, when we had a new general counsel who, effectively demoted me, that was hard to take.
Yeah.
But, and people talk to me about similar experience. And I said, the best thing you can do for yourself is put your head down and be the best person in the role they've put you in.
Yeah.
And you always come out on top like that. That was my experience. And there are many people who I've coached that way for whom it's been their experience as well.
Sure.
And it's just been quite a journey that I probably couldn't have mapped it. If you had asked me in 1988 when I came out of law school to map it that way, I would not have mapped the journey I've been on. But I look back now and, and that's the other thing. I do believe in divine intervention. I do believe that I did not make this journey on my own. I do believe there is a God who is looking out for me and looking out for many others. And I do believe he's made a great difference in not only my career, but in my personal life. So I'm always mindful of that I did not get to where I am on my own.
Right.
Thurgood Marshall, I mentioned the award I got in his name. He once said, nobody gets to where they are by pulling themselves up on their bootstraps. There's always somebody helping you along the way. In my case, there's been a lot of people who've helped me along the way. And there's been an almighty God who's also helped me along the way. And I acknowledge that.
I appreciate you mentioning that. I certainly do. I'm curious to know what you're curious about now at this point in your career. What are you looking at, reading, studying?
I'm reading and studying leadership. You never finish that, but we're in such challenging times and such changing times that I think it calls for different leadership styles. So I'm trying to learn that. We're in a very challenging environment for the utility industry in South Carolina. It's gotten so bad that, many people do not trust utilities anymore. And so you walk into a room and there's a presumption that you're not to be believed or you're not to be trusted. Or even if you are, they think, gee, it's a good time to stick it to utilities. And that's unfortunate. So keeping a team motivated, challenging the team to overcome these odds, challenging a team to continue to be innovative. How do we get through a challenging period like this? How do we get through a period where there are others out there who are clamoring to take up your customers, who are clamoring and pursuing change, some change that we believe to be detrimental to our customers, but they just view the environment as an opportunity to pursue their agenda. So how do I stay on top of all of that, recognize I can't do it alone, I need a team, keep the team motivated, and keep the team aware of these challenges so that regardless of your role, we're all rowing in the same direction, we're all motivated by the same things, and we're all sharing in the rewards.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I attended a work human conference recently with Brene Brown, and she talked about how when it really sucks at work, and sometimes in the military you just have to say, hey, it sucks. And, I know you feel lonely and I know you feel disconnected and that kind of thing. And I guess I appreciate the spirit in which you're saying this because you are acknowledging that it's challenging for everyone, not just those of you at the top, but everyone in the organization when you're having these challenges, but everyone kind of feels it and feels.
Absolutely. And particularly here now because you read a lot in the papers, most of it not nice about utilities, including our own. And so if you're an employee who's not fully aware of what's going on, it can be demoralizing.
Sure.
You can feel unappreciated for as much and as hard as you work to provide an essential service that drives an economy, that drives people's comfort and their lives, to be unappreciated, that's tough.
That is tough. I want to ask you now what you want to accomplish going forward, personally or professionally.
Going forward, I absolutely want to make Duke the premier company that I found it to be when I joined it. Duke has been around in the Carolinas since 1904. Our first power plant was right here in South Carolina. So I call it the birthplace of Duke Energy. Of course, now we're in many, many, many states. We're headquartered in Charlotte, as you know. But I love being in South Carolina. I had never lived here before I moved here. I lived just across the border in Charlotte. But I've come to love this place and the customers we have, the businesses we have. I look at how much we've influenced economic development in the entire state. We're a critical component of every economic development effort in our jurisdictions. It's something we put great value on, something we invest heavily in, and something that benefits not just us, but an entire community.
Everyone.
Just think about the jobs.
Benefits everyone.
Everyone, and so that's a hefty role to play, and to be able to have that kind of an impact. And I think about that. I also think about where I came from, where the power may not be as reliable as it is here, and how much business is being lost, how that's impacting lives. I go back to visit, and I can count on at least 2 or 3 nights a week where there is no power. Makes me value what we have here.
Sure.
I'm not sure every customer appreciates that, but I want customers to know that we'll be there when they need us. The lights will come on when they flip the switch. And if, because of a storm or whatever, they go out, we work as hard as we can to get them back on as quickly as possible.
I've seen you do that.
Yeah. So looking ahead, I want us to be better at what we do. I want us to be more responsive to our customers. I want us to continue to innovate, to continue to put more products and services, or make it more products and services available to our customers. I want us to grow with the times. On a personal level, I want to continue to see my kids do well. I've got one that graduates law school in a couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to her graduation very much.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Thank you. So those are the things that excite me. Those are the things that I wake up every morning saying, thank you, Lord, that I'm alive for such a time as this.
Tell me, what's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
Other than put your trust in the Lord, I will say, I tell you, one of my mentors told me this as a young lawyer, and I've never forgotten it, and I still live by it today. Never try your case like it's the last one you're going to try. And the lesson in there, at least for me, was that relationships are more important than anything else you may be working on right now. Because if I tried my case like it was the last one I was going to try, I wouldn't care how rude I was to my opponents. I wouldn't care how much how roughshod I ran over people. I wouldn't care about those things, because after all, I'm never going to see them again. But if I try it like, gee, it's not my last one, I'm going to see these people again. You tend to be more temperate. You tend to be more respectful.
Sure.
You tend to be more thoughtful. You're not just thinking about that one time. You're thinking about the implications for the next time. And that's been so important to me through my legal career as well as my current career as state president. My relationships are important. The relationships you build along the way. Maybe an angry customer who comes to you and speaks their mind to you. That's okay. Let them speak. You don't write them off because they upset you. You may see them again next week. You want them as a customer, right? You want them to be respectful, but at least the things I can control, I control, and make sure that I treat them fairly, respectfully. I build and maintain those relationships that I need to, as a matter of not only professionally but in my personal life. Relationships are important. At the end of the day, that's what matters, at least to me.
Yes. Tell me, I'm curious what advice you might have for individuals or organizations who want to be more innovative. Who want to make the positive changes similar to what you were talking about.
Yeah, you got to keep asking why or why not. Sometimes the why is why not, right? If the customer says, I want to be able to pull up an app and see, how much electricity I'm using today, saying, well, I can't do that for you today is not an answer. It's not a satisfactory answer. You might say, I can't do it right now, but I'm going to find a way to make that happen for you.
Okay.
Then you go back and you say, why can't I do that? And that gets people thinking. Yeah, why can't we do that? Well, we can do an app. Very recently, in connection with our rate cases, we had some public hearings. And we determined there were some customers who could actually save money by switching the rate schedule they were on to a different rate schedule. An employee came up to me and said, wouldn't it be nice if we had an app that a customer could simply pull up, plug in some numbers, and be able to determine themselves what the right rate schedule for them is? I said, good idea. Good idea. And the employee immediately said, well, let me get together with some folks and think about how we make that happen.
Perfect.
I said, why not?
Yes.
And so they're working on it. In the meantime, I found out you can actually do that if you go to our website. But I think the employee's point was, why can't we make this more convenient for our customers?
Customer focus.
Customer focused.
Solutions focused.
Solutions focused. And empowering employees to pursue those.
Oh, absolutely. Kodwo, I'm just curious to know, when you're gone from this position, how do you hope you might be remembered?
When I'm gone from this position, I want to be remembered as somebody who cared about the customer, who cared about the communities that we live and operate in. And after all, those are the same communities our employees live and work and play in. So I want to be remembered as somebody who cared about what they did, and who cared about how he did what he did, and who cared about why he did what he did.
Thank you. And I'm curious to know, finally, if there are any questions or a question that I should have asked you, but I did not ask you.
He didn't ask me if I was married or not. I am married to a woman named Phyllis Ghartey-Tagoe, and she has been a life partner now. In October of next year, 2020, we'll be celebrating 30 years of marriage.
Amazing. Congratulations.
30 years. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think I've been charged with planning something special, and it will probably be a trip, so I'm looking forward to that.
And how did you meet her? Were you at Duke together, or did you meet her before?
No, that's another interesting story. Maybe that's the one you should have asked me. So, I met Phyllis in the Washington, D.C. area. We were introduced by my aunt, who knew her family well, and called me up one day and said, call her up, and I called her up, and, long story short, we became friends. We talked on the phone for several months before we ever met face-to-face. Then we met, and then promptly fell in love, and within 1 year we were married.
What a great story.
Yeah, and after we got married, well, listen to this. After we got married, one of my cousins came to visit us from Ghana. And he knew her family, knew mine, of course, and couldn't believe we'd never met in Ghana. She is from Ghana.
Oh, wow.
We are from the same hometown, and we both went to boarding school in the same city, Cape Coast, in Ghana.
Oh, my.
And yet I'd never met her, never heard of her. And he didn't believe that. So he went back home to Ghana and sure enough found a photograph of a birthday party he had had. And I think I was about 10 years old. And I'm in the photo and my wife is in the photo.
Amazing.
So I've told her we were meant to be.
You were meant to be.
I think she believes me.
That's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to sit down with you. I really appreciate you letting us in kind of behind the curtain on so much that's going on at Duke, and very helpful, and also sharing so much about your personal journey. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. This has been an honor for me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.